to the Kansas City Police Department. We will have a few things to note for you. I will speak first, the chief will follow. I'll come back with questions, the chief will follow, and then if there's anything remaining, then we will be sure to let you know. Come on ahead, sir. The first thing we'll note is this. Today I'm issuing an order that will exercise a curfew in the following areas of Kansas City: the Plaza Entertainment District, the Westport Entertainment District, the Central Business District, and in Kansas City, Missouri parks. That curfew will begin at 8 o'clock p.m. tonight and will extend until 6 a.m. the next morning. And so again, we will have a curfew on the Plaza, Westport, and downtown starting at 8 p.m. If you don't live in those areas, then the instruction for you will be to avoid them at that time. The reason is fairly simple. Last night and yesterday, we had a number of people who came out to peacefully protest and to peacefully demonstrate. We welcome that. We want to hear that. I, as someone who was appalled by what we saw in Minneapolis, and who has been someone who is appalled by what we have seen happen to black men and black women throughout our country, wanted to hear those voices. I want to hear your voices, and we welcome that. The Kansas City Police Department will make sure that you have an opportunity to demonstrate peacefully. In Kansas City, we want to hear from you peacefully. The peaceful demonstration is not breaking a bunch of windows at a cupcake shop or raiding through a Gucci store, or in what I saw today, talking to a black businessman on the plaza, forcing somebody to sweep out glass and see what they lost in their own business establishment yesterday due to looting in their stores. That's not what this is about. What this is about is making sure that we can find justice and find a way to build justice in our community. Not just today, not just this weekend, not just while some folks are going wild, right? Instead, making sure that we find justice on Monday, Tuesday, the week after, the month after. I take pride in being the mayor of Kansas City, and one of the things that I'm proudest of is when I get a chance to talk to people, to talk to the people. What I'm asking people to say today is, and to do today, is let us hear your voices. Let us wake up on Monday morning and hear and see news footage of people who made outstanding points, who gave great speeches, who said what this was really about, who talk about the fact that a man's life we saw end on television while there's a police officer with a knee on his neck, right? That's the sort of thing that we want to respond to right now. That's the sort of thing we want to prevent from happening in the future. And that's the sort of thing that our peaceful protest, that's what's going to happen, right? We're going to make sure that folks have a chance to share, first of all, why that should never happen again. Second, how we can prevent it. Third, how we can make new policies. Fourth, how we can get other people to join our struggle. That's what this is about right now. So a few other notes that I wanted to make for you. As you probably already heard and seen, Governor Parson has sent the Missouri National Guard here to Kansas City. You can see them here downtown and in other areas. They are here to only support the Kansas City Police Department's operations. We also have the support of state and regional partners, including the Missouri Highway Patrol and agencies, law enforcement agencies in Missouri and Kansas. I want to give a special note to Mayor Michael Copeland of Olathe, who I called yesterday, and he said Olathe, Kansas stands ready to support too. There are a number of departments like that around our region who have been helpful, again, to make sure people stay safe, but more than anything, to make sure people's voices can be heard. I'll note one thing, and then certainly the chief can talk further on it. There were 85 arrests last night. There was significant injury to property, although it certainly was not as bad as we saw in other areas. It was more than we want to tolerate in this region. There were injuries both to demonstrators and injuries to law enforcement officers. None of that needed to happen, and we don't want to see any of that happen today or tonight. And I'll note this as well for those who are interested, because I actually talked to a young man, 22-year-old African-American man from the northeast area of Kansas City this morning, who, because I gave my cell phone number out before, texted me, and then we talked. And he said, well, what are we supposed to do? And that's a good question. But I say, instead of just, breaking glass or doing something, talk to me. I'll give you my cell phone number again. My staff's going to kill me. 816-679-1662. 679-1662. If you're mad, text me. Call me. I got a seat on the Board of Police Commissioners. I'm mayor for at least another 3 years. It's been a wild year already. Call me. Let's make some sort of difference. A difference isn't breaking up a place. A difference isn't making a property owner, including a black property owner, have to clean up the next day. A difference is saying that we're going to change the way we do things in a community. And the way we do that is by making sure our message is heard and amplified. And the way that message is heard and amplified is making sure we hear it. Watching the news this morning, I just saw images of broken glass. I saw images that we didn't want to, I think, have shown is what's our community paying. I wanted to share more of that. So I'll be having a Facebook Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. as well. We'll get you the information, but basically look up my mayoral Facebook page, 6 o'clock p.m. Join us. Everybody join. Say whatever you want. Ask me whatever you want. Tell me how angry you are. You know what? I'm a black man in America too, so I understand a lot of it. So let's just make sure we do that. With that, that's all I have for our initial remarks. Chief Smith.
Thank you. I want to say thanks to everyone that comes out that leads a peaceful demonstration in Kansas City. This department has a long history of facilitating those demonstrations. For the 30 years I've been on this job, most of them go very well, and we welcome them. As the mayor said, we will help facilitate them. We will work with any organizer, leader. We want to be involved, and we want people's voices to be heard. We're happy to do it. It's part of our job. We like to do it. To those people out there who thinks destruction is the way, I would ask, I would beg, I would say, please stop that. Stop destroying our businesses. Stop destroying other entities. Stop destroying our community. Stop destroying our reputation as a city. This is not what we want. We have a long history in Kansas City of being hospitable and people wanting to be here. This is not the message we want to send. And it's not the city, frankly, that I'm a resident of, my family's part of. This is not what we want. So I'm asking those people to stop doing that. We did have, to the other stats the mayor talked about, we did have some officers injured last night. Today we were having a briefing. I asked if anyone in the room who was there last night did not get hit by an object, and not one officer could raise their hand. Everyone had been assaulted in some way last night. Those are the dynamics we are working with. I just want to say Kansas City's better in this, and we can do better.
All right, I'll go through a set of questions first. I'm going to go in this direction, and then the Chief and Captain Jackson, who I've been reminded will be giving hourly updates to the press about what's going on. I hope they are all quiet, and he's just talking about how he's learning a whole bunch of great stuff from the protests. That's our hope. So we'll be giving those hourly updates as well, but I'm happy to take any questions. I'll start here.
Do we know how many of those arrests, those 85 arrests, are local people in our area?
And I'll briefly answer. I don't think we have that information yet in terms of the locality of arrests. We'll be sure to work that out for you and get it to you this week. Yes?
Talk a little bit about the National Guard's presence here, how many people there are. I know that specifically they're surrounding the police headquarters here. Is that so we don't see a repeat of the precinct being burned down in Minneapolis? Talk about the National Guard.
So I'll ask the Chief, do you have anything to say about National Guard?
I don't think it's any secret that if we look about what's happening about the nation and try and learn from that here in Kansas City, we've seen other law enforcement institutions targeted, whether it would be police stations, justice centers, those sorts of things. When asked, as you all know, our manpower is required outside in the city at nights. We have very limited manpower back at our central places, our police stations, our headquarters. So when the offer was made, I said, hey, we would like to have some help because all of our people are out on the streets.
Have you asked anybody else to help, Jackson County?
Yeah, we put out a mutual aid request. So last night we had outside agencies come in and help us, and we will have them again today.
Hey, Chief, I got a question. One sec, Toriano. We're going to go around.
Michael, Chief, just to follow up on that, and save you some steps here. What guard outfit? How many guard people?
I got a call last night that said we'll get 30 to you tonight. I don't know how many are coming today. They're still working out their logistics.
And the 30 beyond what I can see here are where?
All I know is the people we have here at headquarters so far. I don't know. They're not placed anywhere else yet in the city.
Did you ask or were you told about it was under consideration?
No, we had discussions about it, and in the end, I make a formal request, and that's what I did.
You believe that the police response so far has been appropriate?
Do I think the police response has been appropriate? I'll just tell you what I saw yesterday. Now, I'll say this first. I plan to review everything that happened this weekend. I take pride in my position as a Kansas City, Missouri Police Commissioner. And I think that we will certainly have conversations with the chief, Captain Jacks, with everybody who's been involved about the response. That being said, I also was there yesterday. I saw some of those frozen water bottles that are thrown at police officers. I saw rocks that were being thrown at police officers. I saw what was happening in the interaction. So here's the thing about law enforcement, where it needs to be in this country, and where we're certainly going to make sure it is in Kansas City. I'm not going to stand here and say right now that everything was perfect about the response, but I'm not going to stand here right now and say everything was terrible about it either. What we're going to do is make sure we have a smart review. And if there's a problem with anything that happened, we're going to have a conversation with the chief. He's going to have a conversation with his own people. But, I'm also going to make sure we stand up and stand behind those that actually just did their jobs admirably. The problem that we're having right now, and this is what I feared yesterday, but I guess it's the way life goes, was that we would have a press conference where we're not talking at all about how we fix, by and large, community police interactions. Because everyday life in Kansas City, I grew up in Kansas City, I still live here. Everyday life in Kansas City isn't a protest on the plaza with a bunch of people that are representing a whole bunch of different organizations. Every day in my neighborhood of Kansas City isn't like 75% white people either. God bless everybody. But you know what? It's really about, in some ways, how can we get the black community engaging better with our police department and have trust and have relationships there. I mean, I'll just go because we have a moment. I told a story this morning. Yeah, go right ahead.
You mentioned something about waking up the video footage.
What's that?
You woke up the video footage on destruction, right?
Okay.
You never mentioned anything about the video footage of peaceful protesters having tear gas on them in the Deer Park. Can you ask the question, do you think it's appropriate to use tear gas for the police to use tear gas on peaceful protesters inside the park? That's what I was doing. That's the footage that I saw.
Happy to answer the question.
And I have eyewitnesses and video.
Happy to answer the question. No, I don't think it's appropriate to use tear gas on peaceful protesters. The description is in peaceful, right? And so, like we said before, when I see somebody who was throwing something. Now, so what I saw yesterday, what I saw with my own eyes, not on video. So maybe there's a video that you can.
It's not everyone though. So
what's that?
It's not everyone throwing bombs. How can you work with protesters and the police work
Sure.
with protesters to weed out the bad people? There has to be discernment in the uniform. You have to know who the bad people are and get them up out of the crowd. But when you indiscriminately pepper spray people and throw tear gas
Right.
for protesting, children included, that's a problem issue. How do you address that? Chief, I would like you to address that as well.
So, I mean, back to your original question, I think when we have peaceful protesters, and I'll note this, right? Kansas City has actually done a very good job with peaceful protests. Kansas City and this police department. Right after, let me just finish. Let me speak now. Right after Ferguson, after a number of different incidents, Kansas City's police department, time and time again, and our protesters were able to coexist in a peaceful way. So I think the issue that we can debate right now too, but I'm just trying to answer the question that you asked me. All right. And so what I'm trying to say is that, yes, I don't think that somebody who is peaceful, right, who is just there, should have tear gas on, should have actually any negative repercussions. And I think your question is actually a very good one. That's probably the challenge for every police officer in this community too, which is if there's somebody who threw a bottle at you or a rock at you and is throwing it at everybody who's standing in a line with you, how do you get that person out of the crowd without actually hurting or injuring anybody else?
People are not antagonized by pepper spray and agitated. That's how you do it.
I was there yesterday. And I may get to talk to you on Facebook Live this week for the Star too, I think. And I'm happy to talk to you about it further. And I did see the police actually try to just get people out of the crowd too, right? It's not like, I'll just say that I don't think when I got there at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock or whenever I showed up yesterday, the police drove up and just started spraying tear gas on the crowd. right? I don't think that's how that all started, right? You started seeing more skirmishes between the crowd and the police. And we'll look through all the video to make sure, and I know the chief's going to look through all the video to make sure that to the extent that you had one side started versus the other, we need to make sure that there's a way to reprimand those people. But I will tell you one difference, right? On this side of things, and this is the difference that we need to see in America now, right? We need to make sure that those, if there are officers that did that, they need to be reprimanded, right? We need to make sure that we are doing something about that. That's why I answered that. I think the answer was no to your question. No, peaceful people shouldn't. So if there's an 8-year-old who's just sitting there holding a sign saying Black Lives Matter or something like that, no, they should not have pepper spray in their eyes. They should not get tear gas. And so the question is, how do we get to a place where we can get whatever bad apples out of a crowd? Because what I would argue to anybody who was there last night or anybody who's been watching it on TV, not everybody in this crowd is actually just so down with the cause of the treatment of black people in America that they felt like the need to come out. And I say this as somebody with it. So what I'd like to see is everybody coming out and being as peaceful as they possibly can. And so that we can actually let that voice be heard, let that 8-year-old be in the crowd, let whoever else wants to be a part of it, and not actually have to deal with this sort of, how do we get through the battle in some sort of way.
Are you suggesting, Mayor, that there were instigators there?
I'll let the Chief answer first. Yes, for the answer.
Pardon me, sir?
I'll come back and talk.
Chief Smith, I want to first say, God bless your officers who are on the front line that were hurt. It's not personal against those ladies and gentlemen that's on the front line. God bless those people. But my question to you is, how can the police department go about letting people peacefully protest without being pepper sprayed and tear gas? Peaceful protest. And I'm going to be the first one to condemn the looters and the people that's causing problems. I'm not with that at all, but I'm asking that question.
Okay, it's a legitimate question. Before we use chemical of any time, we give a warning and we tell people. Yesterday, we told the entire crowd that it was an unlawful assembly and they must disperse. No one moved. At that point, everyone was violating the law. And so, when we deem the crowd to be throwing bottles and rocks at officers, that's when we deem it, whether it's a peaceful protest or it's moving into civil unrest. And at that point, it's shifting. At that point, we issue our warnings. At that point, we respond to the amount of force that's being used against us.
Okay, there have been reports, not here yet, but reports in other cities of agitation about fears coming. And if you have peaceful protests, you have people coming trucking and arguing, how do you discern between peaceful protests and the people who are causing trouble and not just do a broad sweep of tear gas and pepper spray?
Okay, again, I explained. We gave a warning. If people were peaceful and have good intentions, they'd leave. They would go. When we asked them to disperse, they'd leave the park. They're right. If people are peaceful, and I ask all of you, all right, it's time to go. You pick up your stuff. We're done, and you leave. That's peaceful. If you all come here and start throwing your tripods and cameras at me, that's different. There's a different sense. Excuse me, Mike. Mr. Porter, you keep interrupting me, and I keep trying to answer you. I'm trying to explain what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah, and I get that part. I get that part.
I'm trying to say what we are trying to do is we want people to be peaceful. And when it starts turning violent in a crowd mentality, it's hard to contain that. We saw what happened yesterday. There's no secret of the amount of damage and property damage that happened in Kansas City. We want the peaceful protest. The mayor and I have both spoken. Come out, fill the park, say all you want. All we're asking is
the park and they got tear gas. So it's okay to use tear gas on peaceful protesters.
I think I've answered your question. What do you have, Mike?
Does your department believe that there were instigators or outsiders, let me use the word instigators, among that crowd? And was that the follow-up to Floriano was saying, I heard lots of reports myself of people that were not doing anything and they got gas.
Yeah. Well, again, we asked people to disperse. We told them, please leave the park. Nothing happened. Then bottles and rocks continue to get. I have an officer in a hospital with a lacerated liver this morning that got hit with a rock. Every single officer got assaulted yesterday. I don't think every single protester. Every single officer on the line that we talked to today, that we're in thing, had been hit by an object yesterday.
We talked about the intensity of the injuries. I know you had some more serious than others when I talked to officers this morning.
Yeah, most officers were hit with rocks or frozen bottles, things of that. We had many, injuries that night. They didn't leave. We had 2 officers hospitalized, one hit in the head with a rock on the temple. The other officer hit in the vest here that lacerated the liver, just above the vest. So that's what I'm saying. At that time, we're going to ask people to leave. When they started hurling rocks, we asked people to disperse. I think at that point, it doesn't become peaceful. I think the intention to be there after asked is a different intention than when you show up to voice your opinion.
Respectfully, sir, I have one more question. The reason people came together across the country is to protest in George Floyd. It happened in Minnesota probably 6 days ago. This is your first time speaking publicly since that happened, and your first time speaking publicly to protest in KC. I would like to ask you, what's your message to the citizens out here who are worried about police brutality and how police go about police in the community?
Yeah, good question. I think, we have a history of doing what's right in Kansas City. I'm not saying we're perfect. You all have stories of things that we've done wrong. I think we are very good with our memorandum of understanding with our federal partners and Jackson County Prosecutor's Office. We disclose all that information. When we think there's something wrong, our police department voluntarily turns over all that information. And we want a checks and balance. As the mayor said, we'll review what we did here. I'm sure there will be adjustments. That is not uncalled for. We want to be the best police department in America. We want our community to support us and trust us. We want all of that, just like hopefully all of you want from us.
So going into today's protest, are you expecting the same kind of response as last night? And also, how much damage did the plaza experience last night during the vandalism?
I would say the substantial amount of damage. There was some looting. There was a lot of window damage on the plaza. Some of the businesses were broken into. We tried to contain that as best as possible, but we know we have significant loss in some of the businesses. Do I expect the same thing? I would say we're planning for some of the same things. I hope and I pray that Kansas City will do better today.
What are you telling your officers on how to handle whenever protesters are asking or explaining their grievances, what they've had in the past? What are you telling them, to just listen or having a dialogue with these protesters, a peaceful dialogue? What are you telling your officers?
Yeah, we always tell our officers, we always interact with the public if it's possible. So, it's hard on the line. It's very tense, I will tell you. It's very charged. I'm sure some of you all were there yesterday and you heard some of the chants that were set. They weren't positive chants towards the police. We get that. We understand people are venting. We get that. It's hard sometimes to have a dialogue under those conditions. I think when the proper time comes, we will have those discussions.
We'll take, this is the last question for the
I had a question from the concerned citizen. They want to know, why did you wait 6 days to address this issue?
I think we put out a statement when it happened. What's that? I think we put out a statement when it happened. And this is disheartening. The whole thing that happened is disheartening. There's nothing worse to see what you watch on TV, on video. Like I said to someone else, this is my choosing profession, the one I love. It is hard to watch things like that for me. It's hard to see a citizen who is totally compliant, appears to be handcuffed on the ground, treated like that. It hurts all of us. I wish it never happened. I wish some officer would have stepped up and said, don't do that. I wish he wouldn't have put a knee on him. I wish circumstances didn't unfold that way. None of us can change its history now. But I think what we can do moving forward is, as the mayor said, open those dialogues, make sure we're doing what we can to make sure there's good community trust here in Kansas City.
Any other questions for you?
Mayor, I wanted to ask you something really quick. I've heard you allude in other speeches to the fact that you have been a victim of racial profiling, racial discrimination growing up. Can you talk about that for a minute?
The problem is I won't have a unique story in the slightest. So anybody watching right now have this, but it'll be the most interesting. And this one isn't actually shade on this police department, but a local. When I was a kid, I remember my mom and I got McDonald's in Leawood, Kansas, and we're like eating and trying to eat in the Leawood City Park. A police officer rolls up on my mom, right? My mom and I. And the thing that I continue to think about is, that day she was nice. She had to act all compliant, all that sort of stuff. But what if she had been like, you know what, I'm just not feeling this today? What if she'd been like, no, you have no reason to ask me for my identification because I'm just lawfully sitting in a park right now eating some sandwich with my son, right? That's the sort of That's the sort of thing that like we live with, right? Being followed. I can keep coming up with these stories every like 2 or 3 years of my life, including very recently as mayor of Kansas City. And so, I mean, and I get every question everybody has. I always enjoy talking to Toriano and everybody else too. But I'm interested in changing systems long term. I'm interested in seeing, this is why I talk about marijuana decriminalization all the time, right? Because when we see problems, when we see what happens with interaction, when we see how we criminalize parts of society almost entirely, when we see how we treat certain groups of people consistently in every city in this country, large and small, then you see that you have a problem. And for me, I want to spend this moment where we're talking about George Floyd, talking about how we're going to change it. While it is very important to understand how police handle protests, that is important, trust me. Right? I mean, I'm gonna have to be a real lawyer one day, so maybe I'll represent people who the police, whatever, have interactions with. But nevertheless, my bigger thing is how do I change that everyday interaction that people have? I mean, I got a whole list of them. One, right? You stop criminalizing poverty. I think it is very fair to say that if there's somebody who gets in just a little bit of trouble, right, then it starts to follow them, and then it balloons and it balloons. You create more warranty-free days where people can act, or warranty amnesty days, so people can actually get their records clear. So they're not just running around saying, I don't have $200, and then getting picked up the next time. They're just trying to do who knows what. I mean, there is a lot you can do. You can actually adequately fund public defender services, right? That's a state question. You can do so much more. Somebody was telling me the other day, too, and I take offense to this, while we were talking about the COVID struggle. They said, you did all of this for COVID and avoiding the spread of it, and y'all don't care about all of the black lives that are killed in homicides every year, which is just ridiculous. This city alone probably spends about $300 million, I would say, if you add up everything in our crime-fighting complex. We need to do better there, right, to make sure that we're respecting how things go. So I could actually talk for about 3 hours.
How does local control fit into all that?
What's that?
How does local control of the police department fit into all that? Local control of the police department, how does it fit into all of it?
How does local control relate to it?
Yeah.
I got you. And sorry for not being able to hear everything. I think that's it can relate very directly. I'll break down local control question in a few ways. One, I know you're from St. Louis. It does not change everything. I do think that accountability is going to be our key. And so whether you are in Minneapolis that has local control, but it seems like the accountability equation, because they've had incidents in that metro area consistently, wasn't met, versus a Kansas City where you still have a state-appointed board, you need more than anything to make sure you have accountability. There's some people that were hitting me up, because I talk to people too, and they say, oh, why don't you go off on the chief if you disagree with all of that. I'm like, we talk. But my other thing is, I make sure we have a relationship just so we do have a department that's accountable. And you know what? There are other chiefs, and I will say this in respect to him, who would not be standing here right now. Because I can't fire him alone. I can't do something to him that dramatic, and the budget's already passed for this year. So he could have been like, to hell with Lucas. I'll get my votes on the city council and keep it moving. He did not. That's what I think accountability is about. And I think the more accountability we have, the more we can say to Kansas Cityans, for example, if there's somebody who calls me this week or texts me or something and says, no, Mayor Lucas, my 8-year-old was hit. They didn't need to be. What will you do about it? I know that I'll have a chief who can answer that question. And if we both find that there's a problem, we'll make sure we address that. That's how we build better policing in America and in Kansas City. I've only been mayor for 10 months, but that's what I'm trying to build here. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Chief, if any of the peaceful protesters asked you to join them and stand in solidarity, would you consider it?
Yes, absolutely. Now, I think he's working, but I'll let him answer the questions now. But no, I absolutely would. Now, what I'm not going to do, and I actually did asked this question. People were hitting me up at 1 a.m. like, why aren't you out there right now? I'm not going to make everybody's lives and jobs harder, because I know maybe some people want to make me a target or something, and I don't want either officers or demonstrators who are having to come out and be like, we're here to save Lucas. But no, I plan to actually be there in a few hours. I'm proud to stand with folks that are trying to stand up for the rights of everybody in our community. I'm tired of somebody. I don't have children myself, but I got 8 nieces and nephews. 2 of them, boys, men, are in their 20s now. I'm tired of worrying about them, no matter what their profession is. So no, I'd be happy to stand with anybody like that.
Mayor, is this curfew one time only, or what's the possibility?
Curfew,
of it
well,
being
right now it's
extended?
one time only.
Just tonight.
Just tonight.
I believe the chief didn't have that question. The question was them asking. Would you walk in solidarity with peaceful protesters?
So I asked that question because there's a video from Flint where the sheriff, I don't know if you've seen it, but the sheriff comes out to the protesters and starts hugging them and handshaking. He says, let's not make this a protest walk, let's make this a parade. And they all march down the street together. It's an amazing, powerful video.
Yeah, it is. I think the dynamics might have been a little bit different there. I've already been in touch with community leaders who want to do something like this. It's been taking place. We'll pick the right day when we do something like this. Like right now, as I told them, we have pressing concerns on the law enforcement side that I've been 100% attentive to say, unfortunately, that's the way it is. But yes, we've already been in discussions. You'll probably see something this week.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
So as we said, I'll just reiterate, so the Westport area, downtown Plaza, we have a curfew order at 8 p.m. and in Kansas City, Missouri parks. And so don't go to any of those places after 8 o'clock. Let's try to make sure we have a peaceful night. We will continue to keep you informed. Captain Jackson will report regularly to the press. I'll always try to be available. I'll be there this afternoon if you want to talk to me. Let's try to keep it peaceful. Let's show Kansas City and the country, frankly, of how we can speak to, I think, the very important points that we're actually able to at least start talking about at this press conference today, and hopefully we address long term. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mayor.